hi Facebook. We're here today at the Kitsap Mall filling bags for Coffee Oasis, and we're going to have a heck of a program here, so stay tuned on this. And this is one of the hands-on projects that Rotary does on a continual basis because we want to try and make our community a better place. Seeing none, we get to move on to our program today. Our program, and Coffee Oasis is one of those things we've donated year in, year out because they do absolutely awesome things in the community with homeless youth. If you're not familiar with their program, you should be because they do great stuff. Daniel Frederick is one of the directors for it. I believe your father started this, and he's been pushing it out here. He's a dynamic speaker. You're in for a treat. Come on up, Daniel. Let's hear what's going on.
Thank you, and hello, Facebook. Usually when I speak at a Rotary, I start by wowing people in not a great way with the huge number of youth that experience homelessness in Kitsap County. And I think that immediately hits our hearts in a very heavy way. So I'm going to start with a little lighter question that maybe will make us more empathetic. I think instead of just going, wow, that's terrible, maybe something that makes us realize because we relate to it. How many of you guys are campers? You go camping, and I'm not talking about fifth wheel, so just put your hands down. We love you fifth wheelers. So if you camp, if you backpack. So I am an avid backpacker. And though I go often, the part of backpacking that I look forward to the most, which is probably the part you look forward to the most, is when you are about halfway back and you start dreaming of the meal you're going to have when you get back home, or stop by Fat Smitty's on the way back from, and you're like past Squim, and you're already thinking of that stop you're going to make and get your hamburger, and you're dreaming of it because something started to happen, and it's called hangriness. And that is, if someone asks you a question that is just the slightest bit an inconvenience to you, and you just snap at it, right? See, camping's interesting because for weeks after we camp, we have stories we tell, right? And usually they're just of the misery of camping. I mean, it really is stories for months that someone will be like, how you doing? You're like, well, I'm good, but my back is still just a little, I was camped. And for how much a 2-day experience changes the course of our lives for months because how much it inconvenienced us, I want you to think how transforming it is for a youth teenager to live outside homeless, and how much we expect from them while they're having that experience. Don't act that way. Be cleaner. Be nicer. Don't snap at your teacher. And we hold them to these high standards. We're like, be polite. When you think of how polite you are after sleeping outside for 2 nights, right? And you feel so, I'll just say I feel so justified if I'm like, sorry I'm short with you, I just camped, right? And yet I had this $500 tent that was just like all seasons, it's basically the Ritz-Carlton out there in the jungle. And yet, how much that affects me mentally, physically, how much our kids get affected, and yet how much we expect from them at such a young age. So, the Coffee Oasis exists to change the world for homeless youth. And if you're not familiar with Coffee Oasis, we are a nonprofit organization. And every time you buy a cup of coffee or come in and support us, all the proceeds go towards our work with homeless youth. And I'll explain what we do, but when we say change the world for homeless youth, we don't just mean that the life of these young men and women who come in will hopefully be radically changed, and they'll have all the opportunities that are made available to, if you, like me, were raised in a loving home and basically the world was offered to me, all these opportunities. We want them to have all these opportunities. We also mean by changing the world for homeless youth that you and I get changed in the process. That maybe if we pass a youth that's homeless, or we see a youth that maybe doesn't smell great, or maybe is misbehaving in some way, that our hearts will be changed, that instead of immediately categorizing them as they should just be more respectful, or whatever we say about them, or maybe even to them if we get to talk to them, that we will be changed and respond more compassionately. I know we want to, but it's amazing what comes out of us sometimes, right? You know, I think sometimes we think of ourselves as such great people, and all of a sudden we get cut off and we're like, oh my gosh, if I had an axe in my car, I would, you know, and just what comes out of us. And this is what we hope, just you hearing me today, whether or not you choose to be involved with Coffee Oasis, beyond packing amazing snack bags for our kids, we just hope that you're more aware and more kind in your interaction with them. So, there are over 1,000 youth that experience homelessness in Kitsap County every year. We're the fourth highest, we experience the fourth highest number of homelessness among youth county-wise within Washington State. And so these are youth both that are living homeless outside, a lot are couch surfing. Some get to stay in our shelter or transitional homes. One of those is done very much in partnership with the Paulsbo Rotary that helps with a home called Nelson House up in Paulsbo. But I'll kind of run you through our programs, and then I really want to highlight the last one, which will probably be the newest for some of you, if you do know about the Coffee Oasis. So our programs start with what we call Street Hope, and so that is reaching out to youth who are in school. A lot of our kids are in school even while experiencing homelessness. And we also go out on the streets to skate parks to try to meet kids where they're at. We believe that you can have the best programs in the world but still miss out on a lot of great relationships with kids with amazing potential because you're just not going to them. They do want to be invited in and know there are people that want them. Think of how often you and I feel embarrassed or shame or just don't want to build new relationships. Now think of how you were in high school, and now think of you in high school having to ask for help to do your laundry or take a shower somewhere, or maybe stay at a place that you don't know the people yet. And so our Street Hope workers are going out, and when we train our outreach workers, we always say, plan on having more than one conversation. The first conversation might just be that trust building time. You get to share about life, and then eventually invite them into the full continuum of our services. And that is that the next one is Oasis Centers, which are drop-in centers for youth to come in. When they're coming in, they can do life skills classes, whether that's learning how to budget or how to cook nutritious meals or whatever it is. But a lot of that is just a safe place to be in the afternoons and some evenings. A place that they know once they go there, they can just sit down and be safe and have people that will invest in them. The next program we call is called Partnering Hope. These are all in your trifold pamphlet that I gave you. Partnering Hope is incredible. It is case managers who will sit down with any youth who desires it and start making a game plan for life. They talk to them about their dreams, kids who aren't in school, how they can get back in school, or kids who would like a job or want housing or whatever that is, and help navigate those questions that you would hope a parent would do. You want so badly for a parent just to sit down with them and say, what are your dreams and how do we make those happen? That's what our case managers get to do for these kids that don't have those formative relationships in their lives. Connect them with mentors also, and if you wanted to do some mentoring, we would love to have you come down and do that with us. We have Hope Inc., which is a job training program, so they can do job training at our locations or other locations. Those have been incredibly successful simply because we help the youth prepare for being in an internship before they get placed in it. So they take 5 job training classes, do interviews, and then they get placed. And that's been incredibly successful in terms of youth then being employed once those programs are done. We have housing opportunities for our kids, which I would love to tell you more about, but I really want to camp out on our last opportunity, which is our crisis intervention team And this is new and profound. We have a crisis text line, which is was the start of the whole program going. We know there are kids that although we have street outreach workers going out, although we have these places that are safe for every single youth, no matter who they are, how they identify, where they come from, every single youth is welcome and safe when they come to the Coffee Oasis. We know a lot of them are still intimidated just to come in because relationships are intimidating. And so our crisis text line, the youth can text that any time of the day and talk with someone who's trained and compassionate and able to respond. How many of you guys saw the article in the newspaper actually yesterday about it? Wasn't that wonderful? So yesterday, front page of the newspaper, there was just a big ask for volunteers for that, so you can volunteer to be a part of that and be trained. One of the most amazing stories I've heard this last year. So the Coffee Oasis is spread throughout Kitsap County, and now we also have a location in Tacoma. And so even though I've been doing this thing since I was like 11 years old, there are so many stories now that I don't get to hear until someone tells me. And this year we were collecting some stories for our annual report. And I heard this story of our crisis text line of a young girl who texted our crisis text line, and literally the first part of the text was, "I'm in the woods with a knife. I'm going to take my own life." And so our crisis interventionist who got the text responded, was able to dispatch the police to the location she was at, this young woman, and able to intervene in such a way that she did receive help from the police officer at that moment. But after getting out, so she went to the hospital for a little bit, came out and got connected with we have in our crisis intervention team, case managers who are uniquely trained to work with youth in crisis. We also have therapists that are uniquely trained to work with youth in crisis. We have an incredible group of therapists that go throughout our locations just to meet with our kids. And so this young woman, over the course of a year, we don't always get to see the full story, and so this was one of those amazing times where literally you start with a text, "I'm in the woods with a knife and I'm going to take my own life," to one of the young ladies who works in my department, Megan, interviewed this same young woman on the phone. She's now going to Washington State University and is passionate about one day being a veterinarian, and just her joy now. She's still in contact with her case manager, with the crisis intervention team, who's still working with her. She's now away at school, and these amazing things that you never know what's going to happen when you start with a text like that. But we're so passionate about the crisis intervention team because right now, as many of you probably know from reading the news or hearing the news, the rate of attempted suicides or people actually completing suicides is astronomical right now. And so our crisis intervention team is just uniquely compassionate and skilled to reach out and walk with these young women and men who are experiencing those thoughts. So the Coffee Oasis now represents so much to the whole community, but hopefully so much for these kids who really, honestly, I've been doing this now for 22 years in some capacity with my family. It's still so hard for me to wrap my head around what it would feel like to be a 14, 15, 16-year-old kid and go to school trying to think about, where am I going to eat? Right. Where am I going to sleep? And for you, I really, even if this is the only thing you bring away from today, is I want you just to try to think about that and ask, what's your role in that? It might just be being more compassionate to the youth that you see, or it might be volunteering with us. So that's it. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Questions over here.
Meredith could have given this whole speech herself. She's amazing.
I always have to ask you to tell us what we can do to help. So, staff the text line, homestay, maybe have a kid stay in our home, maybe go out and be a mentor. What else can we do? What other roles are there for volunteers or community members in your organization?
Yeah, thank you. The first thing I would ask you guys to do is to what?
Hire a kid or take in a kid to job on a stipend.
Absolutely. And so I'll touch on each one of those. The first thing I would ask you guys to do is all to tell somebody about it. This is a very much an invisible issue. When we think of homelessness, we think of maybe those 50s, 60s, 70s, older. And a lot of it is the kids blend in really well. And so I would ask you just to go and tell somebody. It could be your spouse when you get home. It could just be a friend you call, but challenge you to do that. There are ways you can volunteer, and both from just going somewhere and mentoring to opening up your place of business for someone to either intern or work there. A new program that we've started is called Host Homes, which is actually a program that if you find yourself having an open room and would like to open your home to youth, it is a very well vetted process. It's even more intense than foster care for us to place a youth in a home. Because part of that is there's 3 different meetups between the family and the youth, and at any point the youth themselves, this is where it's different than foster care. The youth can say, I don't want to do this. And so they are fully in charge of what they're doing with their life. And the family at any point can say, I don't think this is a good fit. But that, hands down, will be the most transformative thing either for you or the youth that ever happens. So we would invite you to do that. Also, we do have Oasis centers that you can volunteer at. And then also, I would be remiss to say, giving financially is a huge support to us. All the profits from the coffee shops do go to support our youth programs, but we have a lot of staff now. We're spread throughout the whole county, serving the whole county, including Silverdale, in different capacities, and so just to give means the world to us. Yes?
In this county, why do the children end up being homeless? What happens to their original parents?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll say every single story is different. There's some bigger reasons, obviously, kids coming out of foster care. Even if the foster system does allow some kids to stay till the age of 21. Most kids, when they turn 18, they just opt out. They just don't want to have their lives controlled anymore in that way. But a story that I was asked this, I was actually speaking out in Tacoma on Tuesday, and the first story that came to mind was a young man I sat with this last year who we've helped get involved in treatment, and he's now working towards an internship. He lost his mom at the age of 12 and his dad at the age of 16. So that's his story. Recently, I've spoken with 3 different youth who there was a single mom in the home, and for a variety of reasons, the mother was very mentally unstable, and a lot of that happens. There's just a ton of pressure, and for one reason or another, sometimes there's addiction involved with that, but the youth just gets kicked out because the parent can't handle the pressure of raising a child. So every youth has their own story. I do really want to say that because there isn't one story, but typically it is because very rarely does the child choose homelessness. Most often they've been asked to leave. We even have kids in our shelter right now who their parents are local. Their parents have just asked them to leave and not come back. So we do have our counselors and case managers are trained in family reconciliation. So for us, number one option is always, can we connect a child with a family, and that's involved us flying kids across the country, putting them on Greyhound buses, connecting them with family even further away, but that really is our passion, to reconnect families together.
From what I read in the papers, drug use is a substantial part of homelessness that you're connected together.
Yes.
What programs do you have, or how do you help a child who comes in who has an addiction problem?
Yes. Our response up to this year has been connecting with the local services that are available. We do have not a lot for youth. There are some, but with our crisis intervention team, we've actually just hired someone to come in and help develop a program uniquely for us. Because while there are a lot of great services, as the youth starts building a relationship, they come into the Coffee Oasis, and they often come very skittish. And so, is this safe? And once they feel safe, we really do want to provide the opportunity. And so we are building a program right now that will soon be made available to those kids. And that will be, if you have recovery in your past, present, if you would like to volunteer and be a part of one of those groups that will be gathering, we would love that help. And then I guess for long-term needs, we do connect youth with both short-term and long-term inpatient and outpatient. And depending on the severity of their addiction, outpatient can be an option, but getting them in a 6 to 12-month inpatient is really vital.
Do you have any programs specifically for LGBTQ kids? Or?
Yeah, so we partner with local organizations that are more specifically focused on groups that of support for kids with who identify as LGBTQ. For us, just every kid is safe and welcome, and so no specific groups for youth who identify as gay or lesbian, but depending on the year, like last year, about 25% of our kids identified as LGBTQ. So they just love being a part of the community that's there, and so yeah. In Tacoma, we built a great relationship with Q Center that they have there, and or the Oasis Center there, and then we have a Q Center here. So we do recommend kids get plugged into different. And that's one of the things we've realized along the way is there's a lot of kids that have their own stories. Is we need a lot of great partners who are doing really amazing work. Yes.
I always thought the Coffee Oasis was a faith-based organization, but I don't see anything in your brochure about that. Are you changing that at all?
No, we are a faith-based organization, and one of the components of what we offer is kids come into case management if that is what they would like. Some of our kids, that is something that scares them, and so if you go on our website, we have what we call our Jesus statement, and so for us, being followers of Jesus is the most important thing to us and what motivates us. For someone to be a volunteer or a youth to come in, they don't have to share our faith at all. So yeah, more for us, we want the kids to know that they don't have to believe the way we do for them to come and get access to housing or education or anything like that. So. Yes, all the way in the back. Are there any families who do shelter youth right now? Yeah, that's a great question. That's what we're hoping to do with our host home program. The cool thing about our host home program is that's the way the Coffee Oasis started, is that my family started having, we had some kids at our home in foster care, and then the kids would get older, and then we get to know their friends, and so my family has had a lot of kids. Over 150 people have stayed with my parents in the last 25 years, and so so there's a great example of that. And we do have people that have made those connections right now. We're trying to make it so more people can do that. Yeah. Yes, Dave. Yeah.
We may not be equipped to deal with situations like that.
Is the question if you have an employee who's experiencing homelessness?
If that was, yeah.
Yeah.
I do employ you.
Absolutely. So we work with the age range of 13 to 25, and so all that would take is a call down to our office to get them connected, or they could come down themselves to get connected with a case manager. With the variety of services, kids get connected with us in a variety of ways. Like our Street Hope program goes to the Juvenile Detention Center, and we do some classes there, and we do some recreational activities with kids in the juvie, and so that's a way kids get connected with us. And sometimes its family or even employers. If they're over the age of 25, there are the resources that even calling our office they would recommend. Yeah, 211 is also a great resource if for a lot of questions locally. Yes.
You mentioned that a lot of youth who are homeless are in schools.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we partner with 9 different schools locally, and those that we don't have our employees there, the Street Hope workers there, they're always open to go if we get called. That looks at a variety of ways. We do have a program called Oasis Assist, which will actually have classroom time in the school. That I started that program actually about 8 years ago, and that was we went to. It started with Mountain View, and I went to Mountain View, and I was like, hey, I know a lot of our kids are really. They just have a lot going on. We have great schools in our county, and yet the things that are keeping the kids from being great students often are these things that are happening in their life outside of school. And so, like right now, Mountain View has offered us a portable in the back where during the day some kids can go out and get resources or just connect with people that care. That happens on a variety of levels in the different schools.
Okay, we got some bags to fill up here, so we're going to take a pause on questions here. Thank you very much for being here. And to those Facebook people out here, you missed the straight up pitch. Buy coffee from Coffee Oasis and buy a lot of it. If you're going to drink the coffee anyways, go to them. It's going to a good cause. So you missed your opportunity there. Straight up, let's buy some coffee. Then go to the profits, go right to your bottom line. Yes.
You may have neglected to also offer their catering services.
Oh, yes, and they also do catering, and I highly suggest using it. It's delicious. I've been to a number of different occasions where they've done it. So, we're trying to promote you. Now, what we're going to do, Christy, so, you want to guide us through it?
Yes.
Okay, now, the format here. We're going to fill the bags, and we'll sit down, we'll have final thoughts, push everybody out after that. So, just, if you get done, just come back, and we'll talk to you after that.
And we'll work to leave this room in the condition we found it. We're so appreciative of Kitsap Mall sharing their community room with us.
Thank you, Aaron.
So you have these gallons? We have these gallon-sized bags, and we've got a sticker on the front that says, here are a few things to brighten your day. We care about you, you matter. And so there's a lot back there to go in here. There's a lot of walk-around snacks, things that kids can put in their backpacks. There's a variety of hygiene items as well. I've tried it. It's possible to get everything in this bag and seal it. So it's okay. There's 100 bags if you need to take your time to pack. Pack from the bottom, lay flat as much as you can. That seemed to work. I did buy enough juice bags for 2 in each bag, but unfortunately 2 aren't going to fit. So I'll send you home with some juice bags too. And that's okay. They'll use them at their shelter. So we've got our helpers back here. They're in charge of a couple areas where you're able to take more than one of an item. There's a note in front of that item saying how many you can take, and also the kids are there to help you by actually placing it in your bag. If you have any questions, I'll be back there. And you start on the left here, grab a bag, make your way around, and then place it in the box at the end, and then go again. And I would recommend just doing one bag at a time. I think with all of us here, we'll get through this pretty quickly. Thank you.
All of us here?